Hello, dear students. The 2020 UPSC Prelims paper was considered to be very shocking and very radical by many students. But the important question is, was the paper really that surprising, really that difficult? Or could it be the case that many questions from the paper that were being considered as impossible could be solved by simple application of mind? So we will be probing this very question during the course of the video and find out answers to seemingly impossible questions. But again, we will be doing only very limited number of questions in today's video, and the remaining questions from not only 2020 prelims paper but also 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19 and obviously 2020 and other practice questions. I will be taking up these all questions and the relevant discussions on the Habitat platform, and we will be probing the scope of honing your skills at answering such type of questions about which either you have no idea at all or you have just some vague idea, and in the real examination either you will leave those kind of questions or end up marking those questions wrong. So let's begin with today's agenda. This is a 2020 UPSC question asked in the prelims paper. With reference to ocean mean temperature, which one of the following statements is or are correct? Statement 1. OMT is measured up to a depth of 26 degrees Celsius isotherm, which is 129 meters in the southwestern Indian Ocean during January-March. Statement 2. OMT collected during January to March can be used in assessing whether the amount of rainfall in monsoon will be less or more than a certain long-term mean. So these statements, this question was new, was intimidating for most of the candidates. Now, some candidates who had vast reading, vast understanding, especially of the geographical concepts, may have found this question to be easy, but the major lot found it very, very difficult. Now, how would we solve it? By applying our mind, by using theorems or special tricks and techniques to solve this seemingly impossible question. Let's focus on statement 1. Statement 1 is our point of interest, my dear students. It says that OMT is measured up to a depth of 26 degrees Celsius isotherm, which is 129 meters in the southwestern Indian Ocean. Now, I call these kind of statements as unreasonable statements. Now, why do I call these statements as unreasonable? Because this statement expects you to know exactly the temperature, whether it is 25 degree, 26 degree or 27 degree isotherm, and the depth. It's neither 125 nor 130. It is somewhere between at 129. Now, humanly, it is not possible to memorize all such rote facts. So, in such kind of statements, I would say UPSC very generously provides you hints. It is nothing but a hint that this statement is more likely to be wrong. But again, there are statements provided by UPSC where facts are used, numbers are used, but those statements are very much correct. But those contexts differ. And when we come to those kinds of questions, we will talk about those questions and those contexts as well. But in this context, we will assume statement 1 to be Wrong, because it is highly unreasonable. Now remains statement 2. Even if you have no idea about the concept being asked in the question, you are at least left with a 50-50 kind of a situation. And being left with a 50-50 kind of a situation is a big boon for us civil services aspirants, my dear students. And if you are ready to take that risk, then you might end up marking the right answer, which is 2 only. OMT collected during Jan to March can be used in assessing weather, which is the correct statement in this regard, 2 only. Now let me make it more comprehensible to you by giving you another example of a question asked by UPSC. Now this is a 2016 UPSC question. The question is, with reference to AstroSat, the astronomical observatory launched by India, which one of the following statements is or are correct? Statement 1, other than USA and Russia, India is the only country to have launched a similar observatory into space. Statement 2, AstroSat is a 2000 kg satellite placed in an orbit at 1650 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. Now again, it is very easy to spot the unreasonable statement in this question. Here, statement 2 would be that unreasonable statement which expects you to not only precisely know about the weight of the satellite, whether it is 2000 kg, 1500 kg, or 2500 kg, but also the exact orbit, whether it is 1600, 1650, 1750, and so on. So for that reason, I would consider it unreasonable and assume it to be wrong. Eliminating statement 2, you are left only with statement 1. Again, a 50-50 kind of situation persists, assuming that you don't have any idea about the thing being asked in the question. But again, in a 50-50 situation, you can end up marking the right answer if you have the requisite risk-taking appetite. Now we have discussed two very similar questions, which have unusual statements, unreasonable statements, and by virtue of which we are eliminating those statements. And in the language of Tigidams, we call them extreme exaggerations, and that's how we arrive at the right answer. And what's the learning we get is that discussions or interactions are key to memorize such factual details. Now, what are the factual details here? It is whether India is the first, second, or third country to do so in the context of space technology. Another fact is whether the temperature is 26 degrees Celsius, whether the depth is 129 meters, and so on. So as I have mentioned about habitat, the USP of habitat would be its discourse, its interactions between the peers, between co-aspirants, between aspirants at one side and with mentors like me and others on the other side, that help in not only memorizing rote facts, but also to understand new concepts during the discussions in the habitat. All right, these were two questions that we discussed from UPSC. Now let's move on to another 2020 UPSC question. It is with reference to solar water pumps. Consider the following statements. Statement 1, solar power can be used for running surface pumps and not for submersible pumps. Statement 2, solar power can be used for running centrifugal pumps and not ones with piston. Now here we ask ourselves a question: why not? Why not? Why not a solar pump? Why not a submersible pump can be used in this case? and why not a piston based pump be used in this case? Now, basically, the idea being any pump, be it submersible or be it some other pump, surface pump, or in this case, be it a piston based pump or a centrifugal pump, requires energy, solar energy in this case. Now, as long as the solar energy is being provided, there is no reason for us to think that these pumps won't function, whether they are submerged, whether they are centrifugal, or whether they are anything. So again, these two statements don't make sense. Now these will fall under our category of Tigdam, again which we term as extreme exaggerations. Now, to make it more comprehensible to you, I have again used a 2016 UPSC question, and the question is, what is or are unique about Kharai camel, a breed found in India? And the statements are, it is capable of swimming up to 3 kilometers in seawater. It survives by grazing on mangroves. It lives in the wild and cannot be domesticated. So again, we ask ourselves that question, why not? Why cannot it be domesticated? While many people have domesticated much more feral animals. So if we assume statement 3 to be wrong, dear students, don't forget that we are not sure of the answers. We are taking risk here. We are assuming statements to be wrong and eliminating those statements. And by eliminating statement 3 in this case, we are left only with the correct answer, that is A. 1 and 2 only are correct. Coming back to the earlier question, solar pumps can be used at X place but not Y place. And statement 2, centrifugal pump can be used but not piston based pumps. Again, both statements are wrong. The correct answer would be D, neither 1 nor 2, because these are exaggerated statements. These statements doesn't make sense exactly as this statement in the next question pertaining to domestication of Kharai camels. So these questions are very much similar as far as the idea behind them goes. All right, I hope the logic is crystal clear to you, my dear students. Now, moving beyond these two questions, what is the learning? Peer dynamics are vital to develop risk-taking appetite. Now, why am I emphasizing risk-taking appetite? What have we done here? We eliminated statement 3 because we had that risk-taking appetite. Otherwise, under the pressure conditions of the examination, it is not very easy to eliminate statements which you haven't read earlier. You need to have high risk-taking appetite. And how does that risk-taking appetite develop? It develops due to peer dynamics. And what do I mean by peer dynamics? When you interact with many peers, when you interact with co-aspirants, when you interact with mentors, you come to know the level of competition and how other students are able to use various methods, just like the elimination method and other Tigdam methods, to smartly answer such questions about which they have no clue at all. So again comes the relevance of habitat, where I am going to take future sessions on Tigdams. All right, moving ahead. The next 2020 UPSC question is, under the Kisan Credit Card Scheme, short-term credit support is given to farmers for which of the following purposes? Number 1, working capital for maintenance of farm assets. Number 2, purchase of combine harvesters, tractors, and mini trucks. Number 3, consumption requirements of farm households. Number 4, post-harvest expenses. Number 5, construction of family house and setting up of village storage facility. Now, if a student hasn't read about this particular concept, this particular facts, Now he or she might find it really very difficult to attempt. Such students may end up either marking the wrong answer or they may just leave the question. But as we will see, this question in particular and similar questions in general are actually very easy. They only appear intimidating, but in reality, they are very, very easy. Let's see how. The question categorically emphasizes on short term credit. Short term credit is the key word here. And what are the options? Option 1, working capital of maintenance of farm assets. Okay, it talks about working capital, it talks about expenditure. Fine. Second, purchase of combined harvesters. Now, this cannot be classified under short term credit. Purchasing trucks, tractors, and all. Consumption requirements of farms. Okay, fine. Consumption requirement can come under short term credit requirement. Post harvest expenses. Again, those are not very much. You can safely assume it to be falling under the short term expenses. Fifth one, construction of family house and setting up of village storage facility. Now, if you look closely, option 5 can never fall under short term credit support. Building of village storage facility is a capital expenditure. It takes time, it takes higher amount of money. And even if you don't know the technical difference between short term, medium term, and long term loans, agricultural loans, even then, by simple application of mind, by simple use of intuition, you can safely assume that statement 5 cannot be part of short term credit. The same thing goes for statement 2, where harvesters, tractors, mini trucks are being purchased. Again, this cannot possibly be part of short term credit support. Now, understand the beauty of this elimination that we are doing. Just look for options which don't have statement 2 and statement 5. You have only one option, that is option B, 1, 3, and 4, that don't have statement 2 and statement 5. So that's how we arrive at the right answer. I hope you understand the beauty of this technique. I've assumed that we had little or no idea about the Kisan credit card scheme, but we had some idea about short-term credit support, medium-term support, and long-term support, even though not technically, but at a basic level. And we could differentiate between building of infrastructure facilities and expenditure requirements. And by that virtue, we eliminated statements and we could arrive at the right answer. Now, again, this was a 2020 UPSC question, which was considered to be very difficult by many students. All right, moving ahead, another 2020 UPSC question for the day. It is, according to India's national policy on biofuels, which one of the following can be used as raw materials for the production of biofuels? And the statements are cassava, damaged wheat grains, groundnut seeds, horse gram, rotten potatoes, sugar beet. So what can possibly be the right answer? If you have not studied the policy on biofuels, and even if you have studied the policy on biofuels, it might be very difficult to memorize or to remember exactly the products that are listed under the policy. So, what is the way out? Let's take a bird's eye view on the options that we have been given. What are the options here? It's cassava, damaged wheat grains, groundnut seeds, horse gram, rotten potatoes, and sugar beet. If you look closely, sugar beet, rotten potatoes, damaged wheat grains. Now, these are some things which get wasted in our country on a constant basis. So, although these are major sources of starch, but that we will keep aside because that is not pertinent, that is not very germane to this question. What is important, what is pertinent is that these items get wasted. Number one. Number two, a very simple question needs to be answered. However important biofuels or energy security might be, it cannot overtake or it cannot be prioritized over food security. In other words, food security will always be prioritized over fuel security, energy security. And why do I say that? When we look closely at option 3, groundnut seeds. Now, we all know that India is one of the largest importers of edible oil. So, thinking realistically, it would be highly unlikely that India would divert groundnut seeds or important feedstock to biofuel industry, while at the other hand India is in deficit when it comes to production of oil seeds, and we have to import large amount of edible oil. So assuming reasonably that statement 3 cannot be the right answer. We don't know whether 3 is right or 3 is wrong. We are strongly assuming 3 to be wrong, and we eliminate statement 3. If we eliminate statement 3, we are left only with one correct answer, that is option A. 1, 2, 5 and 6 only. Groundnut seeds and horse gram are automatically eliminated, and that's the correct answer. Now please understand what have we done here. We assume that we have no idea whatsoever about the entire list being provided by the policy. We just asked ourselves a basic question: the products that get wasted on a daily basis. And UPSC has also provided that clue in a very subtle manner. It has mentioned rotten potatoes, it has mentioned damaged wheat grains, thus giving a signal that those items that are liable to be wasted will be used for production of biofuels, and regular food products won't be diverted. Now that's a subtle message, but you should have that vision to see that subtle message provided by UPSC, and that will only come through practice, that will only come through experience, and that will only come through discourses, through interactions with mentors. I will be available definitely for the interactions on Tigidams and other mentors as well as interactions with other co-aspirants. So I hope this question and the logic behind solving this question is crystal clear, dear students. Moving ahead, as I have already mentioned, new tricks or Tigidams come up during habitat interactions. Now, when I'm teaching new tricks, when I'm teaching new Tigidams, I can't claim to be the final authority on this subject. What happens is, during the discussions on habitat, many students come up with new tricks, new Tigidams, or many new questions, many new examples where similar tricks and Tigidams can be applied. So, in the process, not only the skill of applying techniques to difficult questions get consolidated, but a ready-made question bank of possible questions also get consolidated simultaneously during the course of discussion. Now that's the beauty of these discussions, my dear students. Now moving on. Now this is a very interesting question asked by UPSC in 2020, and most students found it difficult. Most students left this question. The question is, with reference to India's biodiversity, Ceylon frogmouth, coppersmith barbet, grey-chinned minivet, white-throated redstart are. A. Birds, B. Primates, C. Reptiles, D. Amphibians. Now, this is a very intimidating question. There is no doubt about it. But pause for a while and think, which are the critically endangered species which you had memorized before the examination? Had you memorized the pink-headed duck? Had you memorized the white-bellied heron? Had you memorized the yellow-breasted bunting? You cannot give an answer in no, because these are critically endangered bird species and you are very much expected to have read about these species. So white-bellied heron, pink-headed duck, yellow-breasted bunting. Now such kind of names more often than not are given to birds. And again, this thing was expected because the concept, the component of internet of birds, internet of birds was very much into news, and that is why UPSC has asked this question. This was not a random question. So when you hear about such terms, saline frogmouth, copper-smith's barbet, gray-chinned minivet, white-throated redstart, so intuitively your mind should, your subconscious mind should suggest to you that these must be the names of birds. Although you are not sure, although you might not have heard these names, but you have certainly heard these names, right? White-bellied heron, pink-headed duck, yellow-breasted bunting, and so on. So you must take that risk and mark option A, that is birds, as your right answer. All right, moving ahead. Now, these were the questions that I wanted to discuss with you in this short video. And the message that I wanted to convey is that what are we doing exactly? We are trying to learn and think out of the box on the Habitat platform. Now, this is just a trailer of what would we be doing on Habitat. Many more UPSC questions, many more practice questions, and many more questions that would arise from the students itself, from the Janta itself, will be discussed in depth. And that's the only way to internalize skills. Now, please understand, trigrams or tricks are skills. They are not normal current affairs kind of classes that you just once read and then revise and you are done. You need to imbibe them deep inside you, and that will only be done through practice and through constant interactions, constant learnings from your peers. And that's all for today's video, my dear students. Hope you found the video helpful. Do let us know about your take in the comment section below. Alright, dear students, do take very good care of yourselves. Jai Hind.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update from Civil's Daily.